That ancient piece of scrap metal belongs in a museum, not in the hands of a real soldier. Colonel Maximilian Thornfield's booming voice echoed across the armory at Ravencrest Military Institute, nestled deep in the rugged mountains of northern Wyoming. His imposing 6'5" frame towered over Cadet Lyralei Silvermoon as she methodically examined her assigned weapon, a battle-worn Springfield M1903A4 that appeared to have weathered decades of use, its wooden stock bearing countless scratches and its metal components showing the patina of age. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The surrounding cadets burst into raucous laughter as Thornfield dramatically displayed his cutting-edge CHATAC M200 intervention rifle, its sleek black finish gleaming under the fluorescent lights. This is what real precision looks like, Silvermoon. Maybe when you inevitably fail out of here, you can donate that antique to the base museum where it belongs. Multiple phones emerged from pockets as cadets began recording what they expected to be another humiliating moment for the Academy's most overlooked student. Lyralei remained perfectly still, her weathered hands caressing the worn receiver of her rifle with an almost reverent touch. A slight breeze from the open armory doors caught her sleeve, briefly revealing an intricate constellation tattoo that spiraled around her forearm, markings that seemed far too precise and purposeful for a typical military academy recruit. They had just mocked the wrong woman. Lyralei Silvermoon had spent her entire 21 years learning to become invisible. Standing barely 5'2", with a deceptively fragile build, she moved through the halls of Ravencrest Military Institute like a shadow, drawing little attention from instructors or fellow cadets. Her assigned quarters in the oldest dormitory building reflected her status. A cramped single room with a narrow window overlooking the Academy's waste disposal facility, furnished with nothing more than a metal cot, a small desk, and a regulation footlocker. Most cadets would have complained about such Spartan accommodations, but Lyralei found them perfectly adequate. The solitude gave her space to maintain the detailed journals she kept hidden beneath her regulation blankets, leather-bound notebooks, filled with atmospheric pressure readings, wind pattern analyses, and ballistic calculations written in a precise hand that spoke of years of meticulous practice. What none of her classmates realized was that Lyralei had grown up in the most remote wilderness of northern Montana, raised by her grandfather Aurelius Silvermoon after her parents vanished during a geological survey expedition when she was just 7 years old. Aurelius wasn't an ordinary grandfather. He was a decorated army ranger and master tracker who had spent 3 decades guiding hunters through some of North America's most challenging terrain. More importantly, he was one of the last practitioners of an ancient family tradition that stretched back generations. The Silvermoon family had been renowned marksmen since the frontier days, when survival often depended on the ability to bring down game or defend against threats at impossible distances. Each generation passed down not just technical knowledge, but an almost mystical understanding of how wind, weather, and terrain affected bullet trajectory. For 14 years, Aurelius had trained Lyralei in this family art, using methods that combined traditional frontier wisdom with modern ballistic science. Their classroom was the boundless Montana wilderness, where she learned to read wind patterns by watching grass movement, to judge distance by studying how light played across distant objects, and to calculate holdover adjustments by feel as much as mathematics. The rifle she now carried at Ravencrest wasn't just any surplus weapon. It was the same Springfield M1903A4 that her great-grandfather had carried during World War II, that her grandfather had used during his ranger service, and that had been her primary training weapon throughout her teenage years. Every scratch on its stock told a story. Every worn component had been lovingly maintained across decades of use. The rifle's iron sights had been precisely adjusted by 3 generations of Silvermoon marksmen, creating a weapon that was perfectly zeroed for her specific shooting style. More significantly, hidden within the rifle's buttstock was a hand-carved wooden medallion bearing the Silvermoon family crest, a symbol that represented an unbroken chain of marksmanship excellence stretching back over a century. To casual observers, the weapon looked like surplus equipment past its prime. To Lyralei, it was a sacred trust and the most precisely tuned instrument she had ever touched. The family's reputation for supernatural shooting ability had become local legend throughout the northern Rocky Mountains. Hunting guides would whisper stories of the Silvermoons taking elk at distances that seemed impossible, of frontier ancestors who could hit targets that other marksmen couldn't even see. Game wardens knew the family name and treated them with the respect reserved for true masters of their craft. Yet Lyralei had chosen to leave this legacy behind when she enrolled at Ravencrest, driven by a desire to honor her grandfather's military service while forging her own path. She had deliberately concealed her background, listing her hometown as simply rural Montana on her application and providing no details about her family's unique heritage. She wanted to succeed on her own merits, without the weight of expectations or the burden of a reputation that might overshadow her individual accomplishments. Her plan had been to blend into the Academy's population, complete her training with minimal fanfare, and perhaps earn a commission in a military intelligence unit where her analytical skills might prove valuable. The last thing she wanted was attention or recognition that might force her to reveal abilities she preferred to keep private. Colonel Maximilian Thornfield represented everything that Lyralei had hoped to avoid during her time at Ravencrest. The son of a prominent military family, he had arrived at the academy with impeccable credentials, state-of-the-art equipment, and an entourage of admirers who hung on his every word. Standing 6'5", with the broad shoulders of a former college football player, he commanded attention wherever he went, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Thornfield's service record was genuinely impressive. He had completed Ranger training, served 2 tours in overseas conflicts, and earned multiple commendations for his marksmanship abilities. His social media presence showcased a lifestyle of adventure and achievement, with photos of him posing with exotic weapons, training with elite units, and accepting awards from various military organizations. He had cultivated a following among military enthusiasts who saw him as the embodiment of modern warrior excellence. At Ravencrest, Thornfield served as both an instructor and a student in an advanced leadership program designed for promising officers. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. His combination of experience, charisma, and family connections had quickly established him as the Academy's unofficial star, someone whose opinion carried weight with both faculty and students. When he spoke, people listened. When he made jokes, people laughed. When he decided someone didn't belong, that person usually found ways to transfer elsewhere. His equipment reflected his status and preferences. The latest rifles, advanced optics, custom modifications that showcased both his technical knowledge and his substantial financial resources. His Chaytak M200 intervention represented the pinnacle of modern sniper technology, capable of engaging targets at extreme distances with computer-assisted precision. Everything about his approach to marksmanship emphasized technology, data, and systematic methodology. The morning of their first encounter, Lyralei had arrived early at the armory to familiarize herself with the Academy's equipment allocation system. She wore standard-issue fatigues and a regulation cap that completely concealed her distinctive silver-white hair, a genetic trait that ran in her family and often drew unwanted attention. Her movements were economical and purposeful as she located her assigned weapon and began the careful inspection process her grandfather had taught her. She was absorbed in examining the rifle's action when Thornfield entered with his usual entourage, a rotating group of admirers who sought to bask in his reflected glory. Their conversation was loud and confident, filled with technical jargon and casual references to advanced training programs that most cadets could only dream of attending. When Thornfield noticed Lyralei holding the aged Springfield, his reaction was immediate and dismissive. The sight of a slight female cadet clutching what appeared to be obsolete equipment struck him as both amusing and slightly insulting to the serious business of military training. His comment about the rifle belonging in a museum was delivered with the casual cruelty of someone who had never faced genuine adversity, accompanied by the kind of laughter that encouraged others to join in the mockery. What Thornfield couldn't have known was that his words struck at something much deeper than simple pride. The rifle he dismissed so casually represented generations of Silvermoon heritage, embodied skills that had been refined across decades of practice, and carried with it a legacy of achievement that predated his family's military involvement by several generations. His mockery wasn't just insulting, it was an attack on everything that had shaped Lyralei's identity and abilities. More problematically for Thornfield, his public humiliation of Lyralei set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately expose the difference between technological superiority and genuine mastery, between inherited privilege and earned expertise, between the appearance of competence and its reality. The Academy's shooting range complex was built into a natural valley that provided clear sight lines extending well beyond normal training distances. The main range featured targets at standard intervals, 100, 200, 300, and 500 yards, but extended. Facilities allowed for precision training at 800, 1000, and even 1200 yards for advanced students. These longer distances were typically reserved for specialized courses and were considered extremely challenging even for experienced marksmen. Environmental conditions at Ravencrest were notoriously difficult due to the Academy's mountain location. Elevation changes created unpredictable wind patterns that could shift dramatically within minutes. Temperature variations between morning and afternoon affected bullet trajectory in ways that demanded constant adjustment. The thin air at high altitude changed ballistic performance compared to sea-level conditions. Many cadets struggled with these variables throughout their entire training period. For Lyralei, however, these conditions felt like home. The wind patterns reminded her of the valleys where she had learned to shoot. The elevation changes were similar to those she had navigated throughout her childhood, and the temperature variations were less extreme than what she had experienced during Montana winters. Without realizing it, Ravencrest had created training conditions that perfectly matched her background and experience. The irony was that while other cadets complained about the challenging environment, Lyralei found herself operating in conditions that highlighted her strengths rather than exposing weaknesses. Every environmental factor that made precision shooting more difficult for her classmates was something she had been trained to read, understand, and compensate for since childhood. As word spread about the armory confrontation, opinions quickly divided along predictable lines. Thornfield's supporters rallied around their leader, viewing Lyralei as an upstart who needed to be taught her place in the Academy's hierarchy. They began a campaign of subtle harassment, designed to convince her that Ravencrest wasn't the right environment for someone of her background and apparent limitations. Equipment would mysteriously disappear from her assigned locker. Range time would be accidentally double-booked, forcing her to wait for hours or miss training opportunities entirely. Instructors would receive anonymous suggestions that perhaps Lyralei wasn't ready for advanced marksmanship courses and should focus on basic military skills before attempting specialized training. Yet a smaller group of cadets and faculty members found themselves intrigued by the quiet confidence Lyralei displayed despite the mounting pressure. During basic marksmanship evaluations, she consistently posted respectable scores without apparent effort or stress. Her shooting positions were textbook perfect, her breathing control was remarkable, and her trigger discipline was better than that of cadets with years of formal training. More telling were the small details that only experienced marksmen would notice. Lyralei never rushed her shots, taking time to read environmental conditions in ways that suggested deep understanding rather than mechanical repetition of learned procedures. She seemed to instinctively know when conditions were right for a shot and when patience was required. Her equipment maintenance was meticulous, and she treated her aged rifle with a respect that bordered on reverence. Captain Helena Stormwind, the Academy's chief marksmanship instructor, began paying closer attention to Lyralei's performance. During routine training sessions, Stormwind was herself a former competitive shooter who had represented the military in international competitions, and she recognized signs of advanced training that other instructors might miss. During one afternoon session, Stormwind observed Lyralei making consistent hits at 300 yards, while other cadets struggled to find the target at all. More importantly, she noticed that Lyralei's sight adjustments were minimal and seemed to be based on environmental reading rather than trial and error. When wind conditions changed, Lyralei adjusted her aim point smoothly and naturally, maintaining accuracy without the guesswork that characterized most student shooting. After the session, Stormwind approached Lyralei with casual questions about her shooting background. Lyralei's responses were polite but vague, offering no details about her training or experience beyond mentioning that she had done some hunting in Montana. Yet something in her manner, the way she handled questions about ballistics, her familiarity with technical terminology, her obvious comfort with the shooting process, suggested far more extensive experience than she was willing to admit. Stormwind began documenting Lyralei's performance more carefully, creating a private file that tracked her scores, noted her consistent performance across varying conditions, and recorded observations about technique and approach that suggested advanced training. The captain's growing suspicion was that Ravencrest might have inadvertently recruited someone with capabilities far beyond what appeared in her official records. The situation reached a turning point when Thornfield decided that Lyralei's continued presence at the Academy reflected poorly on standards and discipline. During a public gathering in the cadet common area, he announced his intention to formally challenge her competence through the Academy's traditional marksmanship competition, a quarterly event where cadets could test their skills against increasingly difficult challenges. The competition was structured as a series of shooting stages that progressively eliminated participants until only the most skilled remained. Distances started at 300 yards and extended to 800 yards for the final round, with wind conditions and target presentations designed to challenge even experienced marksmen. Winners earned recognition, advanced training opportunities, and the respect of faculty and fellow students. Thornfield's public challenge was delivered with his characteristic confidence, accompanied by pointed comments about ensuring that Academy standards remained appropriately high. He suggested that perhaps some students had been admitted based on quotas rather than qualifications, and that genuine testing would reveal who truly belonged at Ravencrest. The challenge was impossible to refuse without confirming Thornfield's implications about her capabilities and worthiness. Faced with the choice between public humiliation through withdrawal or potential failure in front of the entire Academy, Lyralei quietly accepted the challenge, her response consisting of a simple nod and a softly spoken agreement to participate. What neither Thornfield nor most observers realized was that by issuing this challenge, they had created exactly the circumstances that would reveal capabilities Lyralei had spent months carefully concealing. The competition would take place at distances and under conditions that played directly to her strengths, using skills that had been refined through years of practice under far more challenging circumstances than anything Ravencrest could provide. The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose the difference between reputation and reality, between modern technology and traditional mastery, between inherited confidence and earned expertise. Word of the marksmanship challenge spread through Ravencrest Military Institute like wildfire across dry prairie grass. Within hours of Thornfield's public declaration, every cadet, instructor, and staff member had heard about the upcoming competition between the Academy's golden boy and the mysterious quiet girl with the obsolete rifle. Betting pools emerged in dormitory common rooms, with odds heavily favoring Thornfield's technological superiority and proven track record. The Academy's social media channels buzzed with speculation and commentary. Thornfield's supporters created elaborate posts detailing his achievements, his advanced equipment, and his obvious advantages over an opponent they viewed as hopelessly outmatched. Videos circulated showing him effortlessly hitting targets at impressive distances, his Chaytak rifle performing flawlessly under his expert guidance. Comment sections filled with predictions of a swift and decisive victory that would restore proper order to Academy hierarchy. Meanwhile, Lyralei found herself subjected to an intensified campaign of psychological warfare designed to break her confidence before the actual competition began. Her training schedule was mysteriously altered without notification, forcing her to arrive at empty ranges or discover that her reserved time slots had been reassigned to other cadets. Equipment requests were delayed or denied entirely, creating artificial obstacles to her preparation routine. Anonymous messages appeared on her dormitory room door, suggesting that withdrawal from the competition would save her from public embarrassment and potential injury. Fellow cadets who had previously ignored her existence now made pointed comments about the wisdom of knowing one's limitations and the importance of realistic self-assessment. The psychological pressure was relentless and carefully orchestrated to create doubt and anxiety. Yet those paying closer attention noticed that Lyralei's demeanor remained unchanged despite the mounting harassment. She continued her daily routines with the same quiet determination, attended classes with unwavering focus, and maintained her equipment with meticulous care. If the pressure campaign was having any effect, she showed no outward signs of stress or uncertainty. Captain Stormwind observed these dynamics with growing unease. Her years of experience had taught her to recognize the signs of systematic bullying, and she was troubled by the Academy's apparent tolerance for behavior that bordered on harassment. More concerning was her growing suspicion that the cadets orchestrating this campaign had seriously misjudged their target. During routine training sessions, Stormwind had continued monitoring Lyralei's performance, and what she observed defied easy explanation. The young woman's shooting demonstrated a level of natural ability and technical proficiency that suggested extensive training far beyond anything mentioned in her official records. Her shot placement was consistently precise, her form was textbook perfect, and her environmental reading skills were remarkably advanced for someone supposedly new to precision marksmanship. Most telling was Lyralei's relationship with her aged Springfield rifle. While other cadets treated their weapons as tools to be maintained and operated according to technical specifications, Lyralei handled her rifle with an intimacy that spoke of years of familiarity. She seemed to know instinctively how the weapon would respond under different conditions, making adjustments that appeared to be based on intuitive understanding rather than mechanical calculation. The rifle itself had become an object of intense curiosity among the Academy's firearms enthusiasts. Upon closer examination, several instructors noted that despite its weathered appearance, the weapon had been maintained to exacting standards. Every component showed signs of expert care, and various subtle modifications suggested that someone with considerable expertise had optimized the rifle's performance over many years. The scope mounting system, while appearing original, had been precisely machined to tolerances that exceeded military specifications. The trigger had been expertly adjusted to provide a clean, consistent break that enhanced accuracy potential. Even the ammunition Lyralei used appeared to be hand-loaded to specifications that maximized the rifle's ballistic performance. This was not surplus equipment hastily assembled for training purposes, but a precision instrument that had been carefully crafted and maintained by someone who understood the subtle art of rifle accuracy. Master Sergeant Elena Blackwater, the Academy's senior armorer, had served for over 20 years and had examined thousands of military rifles during her career. When she inspected Lyralei's Springfield, she discovered modifications and maintenance standards that impressed even her experienced eye. The barrel had been carefully broken in, using techniques that optimized accuracy potential. The action had been precisely adjusted to ensure consistent lockup, and the bedding showed signs of professional grade work that enhanced stability and accuracy. More intriguingly, hidden beneath the rifle's butt plate, Blackwater discovered a small wooden medallion bearing an intricate carving that appeared to be some sort of family crest or military insignia. The craftsmanship was exceptional, and the design incorporated elements that suggested both frontier heritage and military tradition. When she mentioned this discovery to Captain Stormwind, both women realized they were dealing with something far more significant than a standard-issue training rifle. Their investigation revealed that the medallion bore symbols associated with elite marksmanship traditions dating back to the frontier era. The constellation pattern matched star charts used by military scouts and long-range reconnaissance specialists, while the mountain imagery suggested origins in the remote wilderness regions where such skills would be essential for survival. This was not merely a family heirloom, but a symbol of membership in a tradition of marksmanship excellence that extended far beyond conventional military training. As the competition date approached, preparation activities intensified throughout the Academy. Thornfield and his supporters treated the event as an opportunity to demonstrate the superiority of modern military methods and technological advancement. They organized elaborate training sessions that showcased his equipment's capabilities, documented his impressive performance statistics, and created detailed analyses of environmental factors that might affect the competition outcome. Thornfield's preparation regimen reflected his systematic approach to marksmanship challenges. He spent hours studying ballistic data, calculating environmental correction factors, and optimizing his equipment for the specific conditions expected during the competition. His Chaytak rifle was equipped with the latest optical systems, environmental sensors, and ballistic computers that could calculate precise firing solutions for any distance and condition combination. His training routine included extensive practice at all anticipated competition distances, with particular emphasis on the longer ranges, where his technological advantages would be most pronounced. He worked with Academy instructors to fine-tune his technique, analyzed slow-motion video of his shooting form, and consulted with equipment manufacturers to ensure optimal performance from every component of his shooting system. The confidence displayed by Thornfield and his supporters was not entirely misplaced. His equipment represented genuine technological advancement that offered significant advantages in precision shooting applications. The rifle's superior ballistic performance, combined with advanced optical systems and environmental monitoring capabilities, provided measurable benefits that could translate into competitive advantage under appropriate circumstances. In stark contrast, Lyralei's preparation appeared almost casual to outside observers. She maintained her regular training schedule without obvious intensification, continued using the same aged equipment that had drawn ridicule from her opponents, and showed no signs of stress or unusual focus that might indicate serious competitive preparation. What casual observers failed to notice was the subtle depth of Lyralei's preparation routine. Her training sessions included environmental reading exercises that involved studying wind patterns, atmospheric conditions, and terrain features with an intensity that suggested far more than academic interest. She spent considerable time simply observing conditions at the competition range, noting how environmental factors changed throughout different times of day and weather patterns. Her equipment maintenance routine became even more meticulous as the competition approached. She spent hours cleaning and inspecting every component of her rifle, checking tolerances and adjustments with the precision of a master craftsman. Her ammunition preparation involved careful selection and inspection of each cartridge, ensuring consistency and quality that would maximize accuracy potential. More significantly, Lyralei began incorporating meditation and visualization exercises into her daily routine, practices that suggested training in mental preparation techniques far beyond standard military instruction. These sessions involved complex breathing exercises, concentration drills, and mental rehearsal activities that indicated familiarity with advanced performance psychology methods typically associated with elite competitive shooting or specialized military operations. Captain Stormwind, continuing her discreet observation of both competitors, noticed fundamental differences in their preparation approaches that troubled her professional instincts. Thornfield's methods emphasized technological optimization and systematic analysis, approaches that were sound and reflected good technical understanding. However, his preparation seemed focused primarily on equipment performance rather than the development of fundamental shooting skills that would remain effective regardless of technological factors. Lyralei's preparation, while less obvious, demonstrated attention to environmental factors, mental preparation, and equipment intimacy that suggested training in approaches that prioritized adaptability and fundamental skill development over technological dependence. Her methods appeared designed to maximize performance under any conditions rather than optimizing for specific circumstances or equipment configurations. The evening before the competition, an unexpected development added new complexity to the situation. Academy records revealed that the competition would include a surprise element designed to test adaptability and fundamental marksmanship skills rather than equipment optimization. Competitors would be required to engage targets at extended distances under challenging environmental conditions with limited time for equipment adjustment or environmental analysis. More significantly, the final stage would involve precision shooting at 1,200 yards, a distance that pushed the limits of both equipment and skill for most military marksmen. At such extreme ranges, environmental factors became critically important. Equipment limitations became more pronounced, and fundamental shooting skills determined success more than technological advantages. The announcement created considerable excitement among Academy faculty and students, who recognized that such conditions would provide a genuine test of marksmanship ability rather than equipment superiority. For Thornfield, the news represented an unwelcome complication that reduced some of his technological advantages while emphasizing skills that were more difficult to develop through systematic training alone. For Lyralei, however, the extended distance requirements aligned perfectly with training she had received throughout her childhood in the Montana wilderness. The 1,200-yard distance was well within the range of shots she had practiced extensively under her grandfather's guidance, and the challenging environmental conditions were similar to those she had learned to read and compensate for during years of hunting and target practice in remote mountain valleys. That night, as cadets throughout the academy speculated about the next day's competition, Lyralei sat quietly in her small dormitory room, carefully cleaning her rifle one final time while reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She thought about her grandfather, Aurelius, and the countless hours they had spent together, perfecting the skills that tomorrow would finally be revealed to the world. She remembered his patient instruction during those early years, when her small hands could barely hold the rifle steady, his gentle corrections of her form and breathing, and his constant emphasis on the mental discipline required for truly precise shooting. Most importantly, she recalled his words about the responsibility that came with exceptional ability and the importance of using such gifts wisely and with proper respect for their power. The rifle resting across her lap represented more than just a weapon or a tool for competition. It embodied generations of family tradition, carried the memories of countless hours of patient instruction, and served as a tangible connection to a heritage of excellence that extended far beyond military service or competitive achievement. Tomorrow, she would honor that heritage by demonstrating capabilities that had been refined through years of dedication and sacrifice. As she completed her final equipment inspection and prepared for sleep, Lyralei felt a calm certainty that had nothing to do with confidence or arrogance. She had been preparing for this moment not just during her months at Ravencrest, but throughout her entire life. Every lesson her grandfather had taught her, every hour spent practicing in harsh mountain conditions, every challenge she had overcome in the wilderness had contributed to the skills she would display tomorrow. The competition that Thornfield viewed as an opportunity to demonstrate superiority and restore academy hierarchy would instead become a revelation of capabilities that few could imagine and fewer still could duplicate. The aged Springfield rifle that had drawn mockery and ridicule would prove to be a precision instrument in the hands of someone who understood its true potential. Tomorrow, the difference between inherited privilege and earned mastery would be displayed for all to witness and understand. Dawn broke over Ravencrest Military Institute with crystalline clarity, the kind of mountain morning that offered unlimited visibility across the sprawling valley ranges. The air carried the crisp bite of high-altitude autumn, with temperatures hovering just above freezing and a light breeze flowing steadily from the northwest at approximately 8 miles per hour. For precision marksmen, these conditions represented both opportunity and challenge, requiring careful environmental reading and precise compensation calculations. Lyralei had risen before Reveille, as was her custom, spending the pre-dawn hours in quiet meditation and equipment inspection. She sat cross-legged on her narrow dormitory bed, the Springfield rifle disassembled before her in precise order, each component receiving final examination under the pale light of her desk lamp. Her movements were deliberate and ritualistic, reflecting years of ingrained discipline that transformed equipment maintenance into a form of moving meditation. The rifle's components told the story of decades of careful stewardship. The bolt face showed microscopic wear patterns consistent with thousands of precisely placed shots, while the trigger mechanism revealed adjustments so subtle that only a master gunsmith would recognize their significance. The barrel, despite its aged appearance, retained the sharp, rifling edges that indicated exceptional care and limited high-velocity ammunition use. Every surface had been maintained to standards, that exceeded military specifications, creating a weapon system optimized for accuracy rather than durability under combat conditions. As she reassembled the rifle with practiced efficiency, Lyralei's fingers traced the familiar contours of components that had become extensions of her own body through years of intensive training. The stock fit her shoulder with perfect alignment. The grip panel conformed to her hand position with ergonomic precision, and the sight picture aligned naturally with her shooting stance without conscious adjustment. This weapon had been customized not through expensive modifications, but through the gradual adaptation that occurred when a single shooter used the same rifle for thousands of training sessions. Across the academy complex, Colonel Thornfield was conducting his own pre-competition preparations with characteristic systematic thoroughness. His equipment setup resembled a precision engineering laboratory with ballistic computers, environmental monitoring devices, and optical instruments arranged in careful order around his shooting position. The Chaytak rifle received detailed inspection using digital calipers, electronic bore scopes, and computerized diagnostic equipment that could detect mechanical variations measured in thousandths of inches. Thornfield's preparation routine reflected modern military methodology at its most sophisticated. Ballistic software calculated precise trajectory data for multiple environmental scenarios, while range-finding equipment provided exact distance measurements to potential target locations. His ammunition had been factory manufactured to match grade specifications, with lot numbers selected for consistency and ballistic performance verified through chronograph testing. Every variable that could affect accuracy had been measured, calculated, and optimized through technological means. The competition range had been configured specifically for this event, with target positions established at intervals from 300 yards to the final challenge distance of 1,200 yards. Each shooting position was equipped with standardized benches, wind flags positioned at regular intervals, and electronic scoring systems that would provide immediate feedback on shot placement accuracy. Academy personnel had spent hours ensuring that all equipment functioned properly and that environmental conditions would be fairly represented for both competitors. Spectators began gathering early, despite the unofficial nature of the challenge. Word had spread beyond the academy boundaries, drawing retired military personnel, local shooting enthusiasts, and curious civilians who had heard rumors about an extraordinary marksmanship demonstration. The crowd represented a cross-section of the region's shooting community, from competitive marksmen familiar with extreme distance precision shooting to casual hunters whose experience was limited to much shorter ranges. Captain Stormwind arrived at the range complex well before the scheduled competition time, ostensibly to oversee safety protocols and range management, but actually driven by her growing conviction that she was about to witness something genuinely remarkable. Her years of experience with precision marksmanship had taught her to recognize the subtle signs that separated exceptional ability from merely competent performance. And everything she had observed about Lyralei suggested capabilities far beyond what her modest demeanor and obsolete equipment might suggest. The morning air carried sounds differently at high altitude, with conversations and equipment noises seeming both sharper and more distant than at sea level. Wind conditions remained stable, but required constant monitoring as mountain valleys could experience sudden shifts that would dramatically affect bullet trajectory at extended ranges. The northwest breeze carried with it the scent of pine forests and the thin, clean smell of snow from higher elevations, creating atmospheric conditions that reminded experienced marksmen of the challenges inherent in mountain shooting environments. As the official competition time approached, both competitors made their final preparations with characteristic attention to detail. Thornfield conducted systematic equipment checks using electronic instruments, verifying zero settings, optical, alignment, and mechanical function through diagnostic procedures that left nothing to chance. His confidence remained unshaken by the environmental challenges, as his technological advantages were specifically designed to overcome such variables. Through precise measurement and calculation, Lyralei's final preparations appeared almost casual by comparison, consisting primarily of environmental observation and mental centering exercises that suggested training in approaches emphasizing adaptability over technological dependence. She spent considerable time studying wind indicators, noting subtle changes in atmospheric conditions and observing how light and shadow played across distant target locations. Her preparation emphasized reading environmental conditions through observation and experience, rather than instrumental measurement. The crowd's energy was palpable as Academy personnel announced the competition format and safety protocols. The Gihi challenge would progress through multiple stages, with increasing distance and difficulty, designed to test both fundamental marksmanship skills and the ability to adapt to changing conditions. Scoring would be based on precision rather than speed, with emphasis on consistent accuracy rather than rapid target engagement. The final stage at 1,200 yards would require 12 consecutive shots, with scoring based on total group size rather than individual shot placement. Academy officials had prepared the 1,200-yard target range with particular care, recognizing that few military marksmen ever had opportunity to test their skills at such extreme distances. The targets themselves were specially designed to provide clear aiming points, while remaining challenging enough to test the limits of both equipment and technique. Environmental conditions at such ranges became critically important, as even minor wind variations could cause bullet drift measured in feet rather than inches. Colonel Thornfield approached the firing line with his characteristic confidence, his equipment setup drawing admiring comments from spectators familiar with advanced marksmanship technology. The Chetak rifle represented the cutting edge of precision shooting systems, while his supporting equipment included range-finding lasers, ballistic computers, and environmental monitoring devices that could provide real-time data for trajectory calculations. His shooting position was optimized through adjustable supports, stabilizing devices, and ergonomic accessories that eliminated physical variables that might affect accuracy. The initial stages of the competition proceeded exactly as most observers had anticipated. Thornfield's performance was consistently excellent, demonstrating the technical proficiency and systematic approach that had earned his reputation throughout the military shooting community. His shots were precisely placed, his technique was mechanically sound, and his equipment performed flawlessly under his expert operation. Spectators noted his calm confidence and professional approach to each shooting challenge. Lyralei's performance during the early stages was solid, but not spectacular, earning respectful acknowledgement from observers without generating particular excitement. Her shooting was technically competent and reasonably consistent, but lacked the obvious superiority that might suggest exceptional ability hidden beneath her modest exterior. To casual observers, she appeared to be performing exactly as expected for someone with limited experience using obsolete equipment. However, Captain Stormwind and other experienced marksmen began noticing subtle details that suggested more was occurring than immediately apparent. Lyralei's shooting positions were textbook perfect without appearing forced or uncomfortable. Her breathing patterns were remarkably consistent despite the stress of public competition, and her trigger control demonstrated smoothness that typically required years of intensive training to develop. More significantly, her environmental reading appeared to be exceptionally sophisticated for someone supposedly new to precision marksmanship. As distances increased through the competition stages, the gap between competitors remained relatively narrow, with Thornfield maintaining a slight advantage that reflected his superior equipment and extensive training. However, those paying careful attention noted that Lyralei's performance was becoming more consistent rather than deteriorating under increasing pressure, while her environmental adaptations seemed to be improving as conditions became more challenging. The transition to longer ranges began revealing fundamental differences in shooting approaches that had not been apparent during closer distance engagements. Thornfield's methodology remained systematically excellent, with precise calculations and technological optimization producing consistently good results. However, his approach required considerable time for environmental analysis and equipment adjustment, while longer distances amplified the importance of reading conditions that could not be measured through instrumental means alone. Lyralei's approach became more fluid and intuitive as distances increased, suggesting familiarity with extended-range shooting that contradicted her supposed lack of experience. Her environmental reading appeared to be based on observation and instinctive understanding, rather than calculated measurement, allowing her to adapt more quickly to changing conditions while maintaining accuracy that surprised observers familiar with the challenges of long-range precision shooting. The penultimate stage, conducted at 800 yards, provided the first clear indication that competition dynamics were shifting in unexpected directions. Environmental conditions had become more challenging as morning temperatures rose and wind patterns became less predictable, creating variables that tested both equipment capabilities and fundamental shooting skills. Under these conditions, technological advantages became less decisive, while adaptability and environmental reading assumed greater importance. Thornfield's performance remained technically excellent, but his systematic approach required increasing time for environmental analysis and equipment adjustment as conditions became more variable. His ballistic computers could calculate precise trajectory data, but required accurate environmental input that became more difficult to obtain as wind patterns shifted unpredictably across the extended range. His shots remained well placed, but the consistency that had characterized his earlier performance showed signs of strain under more challenging conditions. In contrast, Lyralei's performance appeared to stabilize and even improve as environmental challenges increased. Her shooting rhythm remained steady despite changing conditions. Her position adjustments were minimal and seemed to be based on instinctive understanding rather than calculated response, and her accuracy actually improved as other competitors struggled with environmental variables. Observers began commenting on her remarkable composure under pressure and her apparent ability to read conditions that were challenging even experienced marksmen. Captain Stormwind found herself growing increasingly convinced that she was witnessing something genuinely extraordinary. Lyralei's performance characteristics suggested training and experience far beyond anything that appeared in her official records, while her environmental reading abilities indicated familiarity with precision, shooting under challenging conditions that typically required years of specialized practice to develop. The aged Springfield rifle was performing with accuracy that seemed to exceed its apparent capabilities, suggesting either exceptional maintenance or modifications that were not immediately obvious. The crowd's mood began shifting as word spread that the competition was not proceeding according to expectations. Spectators who had arrived expecting to witness a routine demonstration of superior equipment and training found themselves observing a genuine contest between fundamentally different approaches to precision marksmanship. Comments and speculation increased as observers recognized that the final stage would provide a definitive test of capabilities that had remained partially hidden during earlier phases. As preparation began for the final 1,200-yard challenge, Environmental conditions had stabilized into a steady northwest wind that would require precise compensation for successful target engagement. The extended distance transformed minor environmental factors into major variables, while the target size demanded accuracy levels that tested the limits of both human capability and equipment performance. Under such conditions, fundamental shooting skills became more important than technological advantages. Thornfield approached the final stage with continued confidence, despite growing awareness that environmental challenges were becoming more significant than his preparation had anticipated. His equipment remained superior in measurable terms. His technique was still mechanically sound, and his systematic approach provided logical methodology for addressing the challenges posed by extreme distance shooting. However, the increasing importance of environmental reading and adaptability under changing conditions was pushing the competition into areas where technological superiority might be less decisive. The 1,200-yard target range stretched across a valley floor that showcased the full complexity of mountain shooting environments. Light conditions varied across the distance as shadows moved with the climbing sun. Wind patterns shifted with terrain features and thermal changes, and atmospheric density variations created optical effects that could affect both range estimation and target identification. These conditions represented the ultimate test of marksmanship capabilities, requiring integration of technical knowledge, environmental reading, and fundamental shooting skills. Lyralei's demeanor remained calm and focused as she prepared for the final challenge, showing no obvious signs of stress or uncertainty despite the pressure of public competition and the extreme difficulty of the shooting task ahead. Her equipment preparation remained minimal and ritualistic, consisting primarily of final verification of rifle zero and ammunition selection rather than extensive technological optimization. Her environmental reading involved quiet observation and apparent meditation rather than instrumental measurement and calculation. The target array at 1,200 yards consisted of precision-marked scoring rings that would clearly demonstrate shot placement accuracy while providing challenging aiming, points that tested the limits of optical resolution and shooting technique. Scoring would be based on the total group size of 12 consecutive shots, requiring not just individual accuracy, but consistent performance under pressure over an extended shooting sequence. Such requirements eliminated luck and rewarded only genuine capability and mental discipline. Academy officials announced the final stage parameters with appropriate ceremony, recognizing that few opportunities existed for military marksmen to test their skills under such demanding conditions. The crowd settled into expectant silence as competitors took their positions and began final preparations for what promised to be a definitive demonstration of precision marksmanship at its highest levels. Thornfield took his position with systematic efficiency, arranging his equipment for optimal performance and conducting final checks of his technological systems. His Chaitak rifle was precisely positioned for maximum stability, while his supporting equipment provided environmental data and ballistic calculations designed to eliminate guesswork from the shooting process. His approach remained methodical and professional, reflecting confidence in superior equipment and systematic methodology. The first phase of Thornfield's 12-shot sequence proceeded with mechanical precision, each shot fired after careful environmental analysis and ballistic calculation. His technique was flawless. His equipment performed exactly as designed, and his shots were well placed within the target scoring rings. However, the time required for his systematic approach was considerable, while changing environmental conditions created variables that challenged even his sophisticated technological systems. As Thornfield's sequence progressed, observers noted that his shot placement was consistently good, but showed slight variations that reflected the inherent challenges of extreme distance shooting, even with optimal equipment. His group size was respectable and demonstrated genuine marksmanship capability, but the spread of shot placement indicated the difficulty of maintaining perfect consistency under such demanding conditions. His final group measurement was announced, to respectful applause that acknowledged solid performance under genuinely challenging circumstances. When Lyralei's turn arrived, the atmosphere around the firing line underwent a subtle transformation that reflected growing anticipation and curiosity about capabilities that remained largely hidden throughout the earlier competition stages. Spectators who had dismissed her as an overmatched underdog found themselves genuinely curious about how obsolete equipment and apparent inexperience would fare under conditions that had challenged even superior technology and extensive training. Lyralei approached the firing line with the same quiet composure that had characterized her demeanor throughout the competition, showing no obvious reaction to the pressure of final stage competition or the extreme difficulty of the shooting challenge ahead. Her equipment setup remained minimal, consisting primarily of positioning her rifle for comfortable shooting and arranging her ammunition for easy access. Her preparation emphasized mental centering and environmental observation rather than technological optimization. As she settled into her shooting position, subtle changes in Lyralei's posture and demeanor became apparent to experienced observers. Her body alignment shifted into a stance that seemed more natural and relaxed than during earlier stages, while her grip and stock contact suggested familiarity with her rifle that transcended mere technical competence. Her breathing pattern became deeper and more rhythmic, indicating mental preparation techniques that suggested training beyond basic military instruction. The moment Lyralei began her shooting sequence, the true extent of her capabilities became unmistakably apparent. To everyone present, her first shot was fired with smooth confidence after minimal environmental reading, followed immediately by the distinctive sound of a bullet striking the target center with precision that seemed to defy the extreme range. The electronic scoring system confirmed a perfect center hit that drew surprised exclamations from spectators familiar with the difficulty of such accuracy at 1,200 yards. Her second shot followed within seconds of the first, fired with the same fluid confidence and producing another perfect target impact that eliminated any possibility of coincidence or luck. The rhythm of her shooting was remarkably consistent, with each shot preceded by brief environmental observation and followed by the satisfying crack of precise target impact. Her breathing remained controlled, her position remained stable, and her trigger control demonstrated smoothness that indicated thousands of hours of intensive practice. By the fifth shot, the crowd had fallen into complete silence as observers recognized they were witnessing something genuinely extraordinary. Lyralei's shooting demonstrated capabilities that seemed to transcend normal human limitations, while her aged Springfield rifle was performing with accuracy that challenged the boundaries of mechanical possibility. Each shot found the target, center with precision that defied statistical probability, creating a group size that would have been remarkable at any distance. Captain Stormwind found herself holding her breath as shot after shot impacted the target with metronomic precision, each bullet finding virtually the same point of impact despite environmental variables that should have created significant dispersion. The performance was so far beyond normal expectations that it seemed almost supernatural, suggesting training and capability that existed in a completely different category from conventional marksmanship. The eighth shot produced another perfect center impact, followed by the ninth and 10th with identical precision that left observers speechless with amazement. The electronic scoring system continued confirming perfect hits that created a group size measured in fractions of inches rather than the several inches that would normally be considered excellent at such extreme range. The demonstration was transcending mere marksmanship and entering the realm of the impossible. As Lyralei prepared for her 11th shot, a slight change in wind conditions created a challenge that would test her environmental reading abilities. Under the most demanding circumstances, the steady northwest breeze had shifted slightly, requiring compensation that could only be calculated through experience and instinctive understanding rather than technological measurement. Observers held their breath as she made minute adjustments to her aim point based apparently on environmental factors invisible to other marksmen. The 11th shot impacted the target with the same perfect precision as its predecessors, demonstrating environmental reading capabilities that seemed to border on the mystical. Her compensation for the wind change had been exact, her trigger control remained flawless, and her mental concentration showed no signs of stress, despite the pressure of maintaining impossible consistency under the most challenging conditions. The 12th and final shot carried with it the weight of a performance that had already transcended normal expectations and entered the realm of legendary achievement. The crowd watched in absolute silence as Lyralei made her final environmental assessment, settled into her shooting position with practiced ease, and prepared to complete a demonstration that would be discussed and analyzed for years to come. The final shot rang out across the mountain valley with the same authority as its predecessors, followed immediately by the unmistakable sound of another perfect target impact. The electronic scoring system confirmed what observers had witnessed. With their own eyes, 12 consecutive bullseyes at 1,200 yards, creating a group size that defied belief and challenged understanding of what was humanly possible under such conditions. The silence that followed the final shot lasted for several heartbeats as spectators struggled to process what they had witnessed. Then the applause began, starting with scattered clapping from those closest to the firing line and building into thunderous approval from the entire crowd as words spread about the unprecedented nature of the performance they had just observed. Lyralei rose from her shooting position with the same quiet composure that had characterized her throughout the competition, showing no obvious signs of triumph or satisfaction despite having just accomplished something that seemed to transcend normal human capability. She methodically secured her rifle and gathered her equipment while observers crowded closer to examine the target that bore evidence of the most extraordinary marksmanship demonstration many had ever witnessed. The target inspection confirmed what the electronic scoring had indicated: 12 shots grouped within a circle that could be covered by a silver dollar, each impact virtually indistinguishable from perfect center hits. The group size was not just exceptional for 1,200 yards, but would have been remarkable at any distance, representing shooting accuracy that challenged the mechanical limits of rifle and ammunition precision. Captain Stormwind was among the first to approach Lyralei as she completed her equipment storage, her expression reflecting a mixture of professional amazement and personal curiosity about capabilities that demanded explanation. The performance she had just witnessed exceeded anything in her considerable experience with precision marksmanship, suggesting training and ability that existed in a category she had never previously encountered. The captain's first question was direct and inevitable. Who trained you to shoot like that? The capabilities you just demonstrated are not acquired through normal military instruction or civilian hunting experience. That level of precision requires years of specialized training, under conditions that most marksmen never encounter. Lyralei's response was characteristically modest and brief. My grandfather taught me to shoot in the mountains of Montana. We practiced together for many years before I came to the academy. Her words carried the understated tone of someone describing routine family activities rather than acknowledging extraordinary achievement that had just amazed experienced military professionals. The crowd's curiosity was not so easily satisfied, with questions and speculation growing more intense as observers attempted to understand what they had witnessed. Retired military personnel shared theories about specialized sniper training programs. Competitive marksmen discussed the technical requirements for such accuracy, and civilian shooters expressed amazement at capabilities that seemed to transcend normal human limitations. Colonel Thornfield approached the growing crowd around Lyralei with an expression that reflected a complex mixture of professional respect and personal bewilderment. His earlier confidence had been replaced by genuine curiosity about abilities that had rendered his technological advantages irrelevant and challenged his understanding of precision marksmanship possibilities. His congratulations were sincere and reflected acknowledgement that he had witnessed something genuinely exceptional. The conversation that followed between Thornfield and Lyralei revealed the fundamental differences in their approaches to marksmanship and their understanding of what constituted genuine expertise. Thornfield's questions focused on equipment specifications, training methodologies, and technical factors that might explain the performance he had witnessed. His frame of reference remained rooted in systematic analysis and technological optimization. Lyralei's responses emphasized environmental reading, mental preparation, and the development of instinctive understanding through extensive practice under challenging conditions. Her description of training with her grandfather in the Montana wilderness painted a picture of learning that emphasized adaptability, fundamental skill development, and the integration of technical knowledge with intuitive understanding that could not be replicated through systematic instruction alone. As details of Lyralei's background emerged through questioning, the assembled crowd began understanding that they had witnessed not just exceptional individual performance, but the Bundy demonstration of a family tradition of marksmanship excellence that extended across generations. The aged Springfield rifle was revealed to be not obsolete equipment, but a precision instrument that had been maintained and optimized through decades of expert care by multiple generations of exceptional marksmen. The family medallion hidden within the rifle's stock became a symbol of heritage and tradition that connected Lyralei's achievement to a legacy of excellence that predated modern military training methods and technological advancement. Her grandfather's reputation as a legendary guide and marksman provided context for abilities that had seemed almost supernatural until understood as the culmination of generations of accumulated knowledge and refined technique. Academy officials recognized that they had inadvertently recruited someone whose capabilities far exceeded normal institutional parameters, while faculty members began discussing the educational opportunities presented by having access to traditional marksmanship, knowledge that complemented rather than competed with modern military methodology. Captain Stormwind initiated conversations about developing specialized instruction programs that could integrate traditional skills with contemporary training approaches. The immediate aftermath of the competition saw dramatic changes in Academy. Social dynamics as Lyralei's status transformed from overlooked outsider to respected expert, whose knowledge and abilities commanded genuine admiration. Fellow cadets who had previously dismissed her began seeking instruction and advice, while faculty members invited her participation in advanced training programs that recognized her exceptional capabilities. Colonel Thornfield's response to his decisive defeat demonstrated character growth that reflected positively on both his personal integrity and his professional judgment. Rather than making excuses or minimizing Lyralei's achievement, He acknowledged that he had learned valuable lessons about the limitations of technological dependence and the importance of fundamental skill development that transcended equipment specifications. The relationship that developed between Thornfield and Lyralei evolved into mutual respect and collaborative learning that benefited both individuals while contributing to improved training methodologies throughout the academy. Thornfield's systematic approach and technological expertise complemented Lyralei's traditional knowledge and environmental reading abilities, creating educational opportunities that enhanced rather than competed with existing instruction programs. Within weeks of the competition, Ravencrest Military Institute had begun developing specialized programs that integrated traditional marksmanship knowledge with contemporary training methods, creating educational opportunities that attracted attention from throughout the military community. Lyralei's role evolved from student to instructor as academy officials recognized the value of preserving and teaching skills that might otherwise be lost to technological advancement. The aged Springfield rifle that had drawn mockery and ridicule became a symbol of traditional excellence that commanded respect and admiration from throughout the marksmanship community. Its combination of historical significance, expert maintenance, and proven performance capabilities made it an object of study and reverence rather than curiosity or derision. Lyralei's achievement transcended mere competitive success to become inspiration for re-examining the relationship between traditional knowledge and modern methodology, between fundamental skill development and technological advancement, between inherited wisdom and systematic instruction. Her story demonstrated that genuine expertise could not be replaced by equipment superiority alone, while also showing that traditional knowledge remained relevant and valuable within contemporary military environments. The 12 bullseyes at 1,200 yards became legend within military circles, discussed and analyzed as an example of human potential that challenged conventional understanding of marksmanship limitations. The achievement inspired renewed interest in fundamental skill development and traditional training methods that emphasized adaptability and environmental reading over technological dependence. As word of the demonstration spread beyond Ravencrest Military Institute, Lyralei found herself receiving invitations to participate in advanced training programs, competitive events, and instructional opportunities that recognized her exceptional abilities while respecting her preference for modest recognition rather than celebrity status. Her influence began extending throughout the precision marksmanship community as traditional knowledge gained renewed appreciation within contemporary military contexts. The legacy of that remarkable mountain morning continued growing as Lyralei's story inspired discussions about excellence, tradition, and the enduring value of fundamental skills that transcended technological advancement. Her achievement demonstrated that genuine mastery remained achievable through dedication, proper instruction, and the patient development of capabilities that could not be purchased or programmed, but only earned through years of intensive practice under challenging conditions. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.